Toto down my shoes, Euro step my move. I just caught the ring, yeah my fingers hold.
Hi, welcome to my channel. If you don't know who I am, hi, I'm Viv. So, I wish I could say today's video is sponsored by, no one but myself. Me, myself, and I. You know, Miss Rona has been as relevant as seasonal depression. It's not a good vibe during these holiday seasons. And so I decided I'm gonna liven myself up with a new onesie. A revamped, refurbished, glowed up onesie inspired by the game Among Us. If you don't know Among Us is, you've been living under a rock. Among Us is the game that got me into watching streamers play the game because I have no one else to play it with.
I'm just gonna vote. What is up?
And I also love the graphics of the game, and it's a really good concept, especially since I'm a boss at playing Mafia. So yes, I'm gonna change my plain old onesie that I got from an ex while back, and I basically tore it apart, and now it looks a lot better than how I thought it would be. You're wondering how I made it and how I just revamped it completely. Here's how I did it. So use a reference picture of the Among Us character, and you notice there are no arms, so having an extra large onesie actually helps a lot in terms of making yourself look more like a bean, I guess. So as you can see, I sketched out the size of the goggles I want. I want it a little bit more rounded than squared compared to the original drawing of the Among Us bean. I basically compared the amount of space I had on the hood with how much I will be tracing. And here, as you can see, I used the felt fabric that I got from Joann's that are only 45 cents. It's cheaper when you buy it in store compared to buying a bulk on Amazon or Joann's or Michael's and so on. So I traced the other colors for a smaller size so I can overlap them and you can see the colors peek out. You don't have to worry about how even the rounded parts are because you can just clean it up if you want, and it's not meant to be perfect. The drawing doesn't have perfect lines or shapes or such, and so you can basically just be a rookie at this, like I am. It's all about the ratio and dimensions that I would like to emphasize on. I use a technique called slipped stitching, which is basically hiding the stitch underneath the fabric. It would be very helpful to just take a little bit of the nip of the fabric instead of just sewing over, unless you want to do that. If you can do that with perfect lines and everything, then by all means do that. But slip stitching is an interesting way of trying to hide the stitch within the fabric by only getting a little tiny bit of it and then sewing it on to the other side without having the thread shown. I have some leftover yarn. I wanted to make the goggles a little more cute, a little more three-dimensional. I decided to knit a little bit of the yarn that I have at home, which is an all-white kind of yarn, and I just made it into a square, and then I would sew the sides, like the corners, down to make a little oval to make the reflection of the goggle, and just stick that on. But if you don't want to use felt fabric and you actually want to wash it with the onesie and skip the button piece, then you can just get regular fabric that actually match the onesie material. I also got these double-sided buttons that you can find at Joann's or any fabric store, any sewing kind of store. Because the felt fabric is not washing machine safe, I recommend you just put these buttons onto your onesie, where you appropriately place them onto the hood, where you also have the aligning pieces onto the goggles as well, in the back of the goggles. And I recommend using a small needle, just going through over and over again. That way it can just be on tack, and also when you wash your onesie, you can just rip it right off. That way you can keep the goggles safe from tattering up or changing the color of your onesie or ruining the felt or having to remake the goggles again, which I do not want to do because I have no patience for that right now. And you can do the same with all the accessories as well. You can get other felt color fabrics to match the post-its or the little bean sprout or like a flower, and you just button it on, or you can get regular fabric that's the same material as your onesie yet again. I used a hat from Daiso that I got a while ago. It's also chicken shape, as you can see. Someone had an obsession with chickens, so I'm just gonna tear it apart. And then now it kind of looks like a Gudetama hat, you know, an egg. So I got rid of the thread in between the different fabrics and then used it as the egg yolk, meaning the beak as the egg yolk. And then I also kind of slip stitched the edges of the egg white part. That way you cannot see the thread once again. And also it looks a little bit more rounded, like how egg yolks would actually look once you fry them. So I use the beak part as the yolk, as you can see, and make sure to go in between the thread. That way you have more space of fabric to use, and so you can have more fabric to utilize. And so I basically shaped it out in a circle like how an egg yolk would look. I pinned down the sides for the way I would like it to look, and then stuff some of the leftover cotton or the fillings to add into the yolk. That way it can stick out. And then I sewed down the rest of the sides, that way the cotton or the filling can stay within the yolk, and also tighten it up. And then when I was done with the egg, I sewed it right on to the hood after I attached my goggles. Again, using the slip stitch method. Alright, let's see how the hood looks so far. Pretty big, but like, I can just walk around like this. Still looks like a goggle, and then I have an egg on the side of my head. I could make the egg bigger, but then I wanted it to not be oversized like the goggles. And yeah, that works just fine for me. Now that I have my little doggy, I'm gonna put it in a little backpack in the back, and then maybe wear this as a ring or something, or like clip it on to my shoulder. It's riding on the little dog. Like, these plushies don't look pretty professional. They look pretty good for how much of a struggle I was going through today. And yeah, it looks pretty good to me. I'm proud of it. That's all that matters. So I didn't really get too far in depth in how I made the pets, because I basically freestyled everything and tried to shape the legs and body and head the way I would want to by just cutting around and then stitching up every little piece that I would like to get attached. So yeah, it was a bit too complicated for me to try to film and explain myself. Also, I reattached the tail and folded down the rounded pieces, stick it right into the fabric, and then sewed together from one side to the other side, being a more squared kind of shape, I guess, and stick it right onto the back.
Listen, fuck up.